Hello, lovely souls. I'm really excited for this episode. We have Krystal Mills here. She's going to talk about Neurographica. If you've never heard of it, I haven't either, and she's going to talk about it. Welcome, Krystal.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I love the butterfly that's behind you. Sorry, it got me a little distracted. It's a beautiful piece of artwork behind you.
Thank you. When I started my journey, I went to Home Goods, and this caught my eye. And then this season, when I went to go do the podcast, my angels were like, record it in here. This butterfly is on your podcast artwork. And I never realized it until a couple months ago.
That's beautiful. Beautiful piece.
Thank you. I always like to start with tell us about yourself and share if you have a spiritual awakening or some kind of awakening story. I think everybody's journey is different and unique.
Sure. I have been a teacher for about 20 years now. I'm a mom to teenagers. And I think really when I got into the self development world was whenever I had a bout of burnout about 6-ish or 7 years ago. And it was just, I just wasn't feeling it at work anymore. And I was always kind of that teacher who, like, you put in 110%. I was always really passionate about my work. I would read professional development stuff on the beach for fun just because I wanted to. There came a point where that just sort of changed and flipped, and I just wasn't excited about work like I used to be. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be that person who's there who shouldn't be there anymore because, your heart's not in it. I just kind of did some soul searching, found coaching and found the whole personal development world in that I was able to discover why I was feeling burned out. For me, we can talk about that too. It was a lot of perfectionism, and my work and my worth were kind of tied up together. I was overworking. I ended up unraveling everything and became a certified life coach myself because the tools I was learning were just too powerful not to share. Then I was coaching women around burnout and self-care, prioritizing yourself, all the things that kind of led to my own journey. As a teacher, I teach math and I teach art. I've been teaching art, been teaching math since the beginning, but teaching art maybe for, I don't know, I lose track, 10 plus years anyway. And so that's when Neurographica found me. I wouldn't say that I found Neurographica, but I wasn't
Oh,
looking for it. I was looking for some art stuff for students and came across this modality. There was something that was different about it. I tried to find stuff on YouTube and search stuff because I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Nothing explained it exactly in the way that made me sort of understand it. I ended up finding my way to a course that actually taught the process because it's not just drawing, there is a process around it. And I was hooked. Then I took my Neurographica specialist training because I'm like, no, this is too powerful to not use with coaching clients and in workshops. And so that's kind of where I'm at. The whole thing was tipped off by some dissatisfaction at work, just kind of that dull ache of, is this where I'm supposed to be? Is there more? Now I'm still a teacher. I figured out how to have that integration of
yeah.
teaching, and I'll be there as long as I'm still happy to be there. And I do the coaching and Neurographica classes and coaching as well, and dipping my toe into some tarot readings these days too, just kind of taking that passion and not working that in with coaching or anything yet. That's a little aside, but that's on the new side of things. Yeah.
That's awesome. I also work in a school district. I do take support for a school district in my area, and I felt the burnout during COVID. And that's when it kind of sparked for me that I love what I do, but it is burning me out. So that's kind of when I started to go into spirituality, but not fully until 2022, where I put on a spiritual podcast for the first time. That was a big light bulb moment for me. So I
Mhm.
totally feel the whole burnout from schools. I think everybody has experienced some kind of burnout, whether it's COVID, pre-COVID. But I think that was a lot of the tipping point for a lot of people was COVID and the hybrid and the virtual. I think that really changed a lot for everybody.
Well, I know it did for me because I was feeling that burnout right then. Teaching, I use air quotes, teaching virtually was rough. It
Mm.
was rough having two younger kids at that time who you're supposed to teach your own children and then to try to deliver lessons. It was really, really hard. But during that time, that was also kind of the realization that I miss the students, like, physically, it's
Physically.
like it's that energy, it's like you have to teach online in this void where they may have their screens off. It may just be through email. I teach junior high. And so you can imagine the antics. Sometimes it's like, but that's that,
Yeah.
like they drain your energy, but they're energizing at the same time. So that was like,
Yes.
huh, okay, I'm really feeling low, but I'm at home when maybe I should be more rested and whatnot. And that's not how it played out. It's like, okay, so I am supposed to be there. I get my energy from there. And how do I actually make it work then? But yeah, COVID was big, I think, for well, everybody.
The energy is a big one because doing virtual like this, it's hard to keep kids' attention if you could even get their attention to begin with. Because I know, at least in my area, there was many kids who had to work because their parents couldn't work where they were shut down for COVID. So that's a big one is the burnout. I think we're kind of starting to see the turn of the burnout. I think it's dwindling down a little bit, but I still feel like there's a little bit of that energy still left. I think there's just a lot that teachers have to do in this short amount of time what you're already given. I feel like every year is something added. So I totally
Yeah. And I don't know that it's ever going to go away. I think there's more conversation now about like social, emotional learning, about self regulation, about, stress management. There's different supports and whatnot. I know in our district that people can reach out for. And that's relatively new. That wasn't the case 20 years ago. Whenever I started, that wasn't really a topic of conversation. And it's because it's necessary. It's necessary in all fields, but if we want our kids to be doing well, the teachers have to be doing well. We have to take care of ourselves at the end of the day.
100%. It's all about that self-care that we actually need to fill up our cup before we can fill up others.
Yeah, exactly.
You help women who are always taking care of everybody, but they're not making space for themselves. Is there any kind of patterns that you're seeing that women are falling into? I just kind of want to dip into your little coaching a little bit before we go into the Neurographica.
For sure. So usually it's moms who have been the ones who've been responsible for just all the things. And people like myself, we thrive on being really good multitaskers. And usually it's people who achieve and like have done a lot in their lives. And so we're
Yeah.
used to being able to do it all. But I think what happens is there's like a cumulative effect of being the one to do it all kind of for years and years, and now it's decades. And there just comes a point where it's like, but where's the space for me? If I look at my
Yeah.
24-hour period and there's this time for work and this time for this person's stuff and volunteering, like, where's the space for me? And that's really like defeating. And it kind of saps that energy. But at the same time, we're really usually raised to be the kind of person who does the responsible thing, and we have to take care of other people and you have to do your work stuff as a teacher. Like you have to do the work
Yeah.
stuff. You can't like not have a lesson plan for tomorrow because tomorrow's going to come. It's sort of like how do you navigate that when you have all these responsibilities that seem like they're all carrying equal weight? How do you navigate actually filling up your cup? Like we talk about that quote, we see it all the time, and it's because it's true. You're only going to run out of energy. I always think that like for me, what I realized is that I wasn't doing anything fun. I burned
Yeah.
out because I wasn't doing anything that lit me up. And so
Mm,
if you can find space to do something, even in small little like nooks and crannies at the beginning, that lights you up, that is the energy for the other things. It's like the other things are important. We're not going to not do the other things unless we deem that they're things that need to come off your plate. But yeah, it's kind of like excavating that. It's also, the whole keeping all the balls up in the air. We have to figure out, okay, when you're juggling so many things, and maybe you've heard this before, which balls are glass and which balls are plastic, because the plastic ones, we can set those down, but the glass ones have to, your kids, those ones have to kind of stay rolling. It's making tough decisions sometimes because it might mean resigning from a volunteer position that it's like, well, who's going to do it if I don't do it?
yeah.
Things that it could come off your plate that are not a complete life change, like changing your job or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's other things that could lighten the load for a little bit while you take care of yourself because nobody else is going to do it. That's the thing. And that's once
Yeah.
that realization hits, like, nobody else is doing this for me. I have to do this for myself because even if other people think I should be doing it, I'm the one that has to actually be taking responsibility for it. I think sometimes people get to the point where they haven't put themselves first or done things for themselves in so long that they don't even know what they like to do anymore. That's another one
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't even remember, like, can't remember the last time." Navigating that sort of thing as well comes up too, but sometimes it's those priorities all seeming like they're carrying equal weight. It's just really overwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think, like you were saying, you don't remember. It's because we get in such a routine of this is what we're gonna do from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, and then we cook dinner, and then we do this, and then we do that. You have to open up your brain again and go back to what did I like to do? Or experiment on what's new out there that everybody's trying to see if that fits with me. And I think getting a different perspective of looking at somebody else's schedule and be like, all right, what is necessary and what could be replaced with something, even if it's just like a half hour or something. It's a self-care.
No, absolutely. I think the not remembering, it really comes down to what did you love to do as a child? A lot of us have heard that
Mhm.
question. Whatever you loved to do when you were 8 years old, she still really likes to do that. You just haven't had the time for it. But thinking back and starting there is usually pretty good. It's a good enough place to start as any if you're like, but I'm clueless. And if you're clueless, and that's okay. You can like literally try anything and just
Right.
see if you like it. It's an experiment. It's not meant to be super heavy work. This is to lighten your load and to lighten things up and to energize you. It's not meant to be anything else added to your list. It is in the end going to make things lighter and easier. I think it's like anything else too. If you're not like you get more of what you put your attention into. So if you're putting your
Yeah.
attention into, work and all the responsibilities, then you're getting more of that. But if you start to put your attention into picking up a book and reading a few pages before bed, just start
Yes.
small. Just then you're going to get more of the enjoyment with doing these little things throughout your day. And of course, I think it depends too so much on the season of your life. We
Yeah.
can't compare ourselves whenever we have like little kids versus preteens versus the kids are out
Yeah.
of the house. If you're someone who has children, like it's just different seasons. If you don't have kids, different seasons, like in terms of your job and your work and where you're at with like responsibilities. And if you're climbing the corporate ladder, where you're at when you're in your 20s versus 30s versus 40s beyond,
Right.
those are very different seasons. I think it's easy, especially with social media, to compare yourself to where you
Yes.
think you should be, what you think you should, that should word, where you think you should be or what you
Yeah.
should be doing. How are these people doing this? I don't even have time to read a
Right.
book before bed. And then it's just like, I'm just going to scroll on my phone and fall asleep on the couch. That just gets old.
Yeah. I was actually talking to the librarian in one of the schools that I work in, and I was like, I just haven't had time to sit and read a book. And she's like, well, don't you play audiobooks on your ride here? I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't feel like reading. But she's like, but that's enjoyment. You're listening. It's a different type of reading, but you're reading.
100%. I love audiobooks and podcasts and all the rest. It is very different, but it is still time for you. You're nourishing yourself. It was a choice you made for you. So I would agree with that too.
Yeah. So let's dive in to Neurographica for let's go basics 101. Like for someone who has never heard of Neurographica, how would you describe it and what makes it different from like drawing or art therapy? Or is it similar?
Yes, neurographic. If we just think about the word neuro, looks like a neuron. So the drawings that we make have lines that cross and we sort of round out the centers to resemble neurons. And
Okay.
graphica is graphic, like a drawing. And so neurographica is not unlike a lot of other forms of art where you can get emotions out on the page. If you draw or if you paint, depending on how you're feeling, you can just spill it out into a drawing or into a painting. What makes Neurographica a little bit different is it comes with an algorithm. That's what I'm trained in as a Neurographica specialist. There's an algorithm as we draw, there's 8 steps, and we follow
Okay.
through those same 8 steps with every drawing. The other thing is that with Neurographica, we're not trying to create a pretty piece of artwork like your butterfly there. We are
Mm.
trying to get a shift. It's a drawing with a purpose, whether that shift is to just get rid of some stress that we're feeling today or to do some planning for our business because we can't seem to get our marketing together and we're not sure where we're missing the mark there or trying to get some fitness goals to finally cement. You
Yeah.
can literally draw on whatever the theme is. There's a relationship issue, something happened with, a sibling, a friend, whatever. It's a way to process whatever's going on on the page with simple visuals. We use lines, we round lines where there's corners, and I can talk about that too. But we use simple lines and very simple shapes and a bit of color. Those 8 steps that are sort of whoever's doing the drawing. Like if I did a drawing with you, you wouldn't know what the 8 steps are. I'm not saying we're on step one or anything like that,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
moves us from being aware of whatever the issue is, like in our conscious mind. We sort of go through some layers of being conscious to sort of zoning out a little bit, getting into the flow of the drawing and letting your subconscious do more of the work. By the end, we're moving back into the conscious and the coaching part. What is your next step? What are you going to do with the insights that you got? There's workshops and there's coaching in both. As we draw, I will cue to get you to check in with how you're feeling. How are you feeling
Mhm.
emotionally? How are you feeling in your body? Do you see any images as you draw? Also, part of the process is like me guiding you through with questions and I wonder what that circle represents, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day is a drawing process for some clarity, for some insights. You want to have a shift, a positive shift in some direction of your life. For instance, I did a manifesting with Neurographica session last Saturday. It's not that with one drawing you're going to manifest the dream you want. However, you start to think about the fact that this thing that I wanted is possible. One thing that we considered was like, what is your big why behind,
Ooh.
what this thing is? What makes it so important right now on a Saturday morning? What brought you here to draw about this? Who's it going to impact? Because if you want to bring in 6 figures in your business or something, of course that's going to positively impact you. But what else? Who else? What is the
Mm.
ripple effect of that? It's not necessarily trying to come up with 5 step plan to move forward. But usually by the end of the drawing, there's some motivation and inspiration to do whatever the next step is. That next step leads to the next and the
Yeah, next to
next.
leave. Yeah.
And it is, it's just, and the thing with the drawings too is that then they serve as a beautiful visual anchor that you put up in your office. You put up where you're going to see it every day. I liken it to like a diary page, but one that, if you put up an actual diary page, people could read your words. But if you put up a page of Neurographica, you're the only one who really
That
knows
knows.
what you were drawing about. You're the one who knows that that green in that drawing represents the financial abundance you want to bring in, or that those 2 circles that are connecting, that was the relationship that you're trying to smooth out the resistance around what you were thinking during that drawing. And so that's powerful too, because I always say, like, after we do a drawing, put it up. You don't have to do anything with it, just put it up where you'll see it on a daily basis. And you'll be surprised, even just that visual kind of cue reminder can help to be like, yes, like I know what I need to do, and just have that extra motivation to do it.
Kinda like a positive affirmation. I've heard people put positive affirmations in the
Yep.
bathroom. Something similar where it's just you start putting it in your daily life, like, "This is where I'm going to."
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just like that. I have those around the house too. I think it's a lost opportunity if you don't put it up. But the other part of it is if you don't like your drawing, because I said, it's not like it's meant to be a piece of artwork, but we can
Yeah.
get to the end and really love our drawing and think it's beautiful. And that's what we would prefer. If you don't, then it's a whole other thing. There's the interpretation of your drawing. What is it about your drawing that you don't like? Is self judgment a repeated theme for you? Perfectionism is huge during these drawings. And it was one of the biggest things and helpers whenever I was working through it for my training, because the perfectionist part of me, I think, is always going to be there. I've made my peace with
Right.
her. That's a whole other conversation. But in the session, one session that I did the other evening, that perfectionist part was coming up for somebody. And I'm like, well, you just get a bonus message. We're drawing about money mindset, but that's a bonus message for you about perfectionism, because it always pretty much always comes up for somebody, because people want to know that they're doing the drawing correctly. You may be looking at someone else's drawing and then you look back at your drawing and theirs looks better than
Yeah.
it opens this whole thing. So sometimes those are additional insights on, how we talk to ourselves. That inner critic can come up for sure. I've also realized how many people have stories, experiences from when they were younger, when someone criticized their art.
Oh.
So whether they were aware of it coming into the session or not, I'm not sure. But that comes up sometimes too. And you just have this belief that my drawing wasn't good. She said, he said, whatever. I guess that's when I stopped drawing, or I guess I, didn't do art again after that. And so kind of dismantling some of that a little bit can be pretty freeing too.
Yeah, perfectionism is so hard. I am one of those people. I always remember in art class being like comparing myself because we did have some amazing artists in my class. I'd be like, well, maybe art isn't for me then. That's what makes me think of the Neurographica. This sounds so cool. Wouldn't do it right. But it's removing yourself from that perfectionist role. I think that's very hard to do, A, with the society that we live in where social media just puts out the perfect version of yourself. But also, I think art in some way has always kind of quote unquote looked perfect because of certain aspects of it.
Mhm.
So, how does Neurographica help people, let's say, for perfectionism? How does that help them break that stigma of perfectionism that they are holding on to?
Well, I think speaking for myself and from my own experience. So, in my training, I had to coach a certain number of people, a certain number of drawings, certain number of hours, and I had to do the same drawings myself, do all the write ups. The drawings can take 2 or 3 hours, depending on how fast you draw, like how zoned in you are, like how,
I
a
was
lot
gonna
of
say
things.
you
So, a
must
lot
get
of time
lost
goes into,
sometimes.
yeah. I say you get into a time warp usually with Neurographica, especially at a workshop, be like,
Ooh.
okay, we've got 10 minutes left. It's like, what? Like, where did the time go? It pretty much happens every time. But one drawing in particular, and I can't even remember what the thing was that I was drawing on in the first place, which is meaningful in itself.
Yep.
But I was happy with the drawing. This drawing is going to one person, my instructor, who is lovely.
Mhm.
So I have to do the drawing and I have to do the write up. I added some color and it was almost done. I added a certain color, which I just ended up hating and thinking that I like ruined the piece. And I'm like, so do I have to like do another one? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to send it to her like this. And then it's kind of like, wait a second. This is actually the lesson of this piece. This is the insight that you were meant to have
Yep.
from this piece. Whatever I was drawing about in the first place sort of took a back seat to the fact that I was about to trade 3 hours of my life for something that was probably a 90%. Like it was pretty decent
Yeah.
to begin with. The only person who wasn't really gonna love that color, and color is pretty subjective, someone else might really like the color, uh, my instructor, and it's not even like it was going to be returned to me with like a "fix this" kind of message.
Mm.
That's not what it was literally my own self, and I just kinda stopped in my tracks. I'm like, "Well, that's ridiculous to think 3 hours with my kids, with my husband, doing my whatever, something
Yep.
else just because this piece wasn't quite up to par." So it pretty much presents itself throughout an entire drawing because one of the parts of Neurographica is called rounding. And essentially, when we draw a line. Let's say we
Yep.
draw a line, we draw a second line. And where those lines cross, if you just picture any two lines crossing, they form kind of like an X in the center. Yeah. And there's a whole kind of part with Neurographica where it's very like organic and connected to biology. And in nature, where things are sharp and pointed, they could hurt us like thorns and teeth. And so, anywhere in Neurographica where there are these sharp edges, we round them off. And we round them off, and
Ooh.
it signals safety. It signals letting go of some of the resistance, letting go of some of the conflict. And it's during that process, during that part of the drawing process, where you start to get faced with that perfectionism part because it's like, how many times am I going to round this line before I stop and move on to another section?
Yeah.
That's kind of the part of the drawing where it comes up the most, the physical, like rounding of the drawing. The other thing is we're drawing with a Sharpie. We're not drawing
I
with a
was just gonna
pencil,
ask, what are
right?
you doing it with?
Yeah, we're drawing with a Sharpie, so we're not erasing lines.
So
So
permanent.
right? Yeah, so you commit, and so that's the other thing, you draw a circle, well, you're gonna have to make that circle work, and if you're feeling like, "Ugh, I don't like that circle, it's too small," we just draw a bigger one. And I remember in the beginning, like, "What do you mean? Like, surely you mean get a new piece of paper and start again and like put a bigger circle, the one." No, no, no. And through the process, you start to learn how it's more about what was about that smaller circle that wasn't good enough, that wasn't suitable for whatever reason. Like, why was that circle too small? For instance, if you were trying, if it was representing something that you wanted to manifest and it was really important, well, maybe it was teeny tiny, which makes it feel really insignificant. And so
Yeah.
you're like, well, I don't want that to be that small. I need it to be bigger. So redrawing it large is pretty
Huh.
significant and meaningful with the drawing itself. The other part is you start to learn how I don't want to say to get rid of mistakes, but you start to learn how to physically make things that you don't really want to stand out on your page with the Sharpie, with the markers. There's ways that we dissolve them into the background. There's ways that we make it not stand out.
Ooh,
And it's kind of like we're in control. If you see something that you don't like, same as in life. If you see something that you don't like, you can change it. And I think that's the other part with the whole
it's empowering.
process. If you're familiar with like neuroplasticity, this is like art with neuroplasticity. We're rewiring pathways in our brain when we draw because we maybe had one thought and now we think something different. And over time, it's obviously not going to happen in
Right.
one drawing, but over time we can start to grow those new thoughts, those new pathways. And that's, I think, what makes it especially helpful with perfectionism because if you do a drawing, a second drawing, a third drawing, by the third or fourth drawing, you're like, okay, I'm just going to expect this feeling of it's not smooth enough or whatever. And you just start to not feel that anymore. You just start to have confidence that you can figure out a way to make this drawing work, which then can be translated into life. I know
Yeah.
that I can make it work. And the other thing is the time. Time is a big one for me. The realization of how many hours of my life I spent making things to a certain level that mattered to nobody but me, even though I didn't realize that
Right.
at the time.
It's like a self-reflection is when
Very
what you're doing
much.
with this work is like, you're almost like, self-reflection, self-analyzing, but it's also like teaching you to kind of let go and just go with the flow.
Yep.
Have you found like, are there particular colors that people are drawn to for specific things, or is it just like completely what they're gravitated to?
Yeah, so color adds just a whole nother energy when you picture, a page, a drawing of any sort. Like you picture even just an empty coloring book, and then when you start to spill color onto it, it gives it life and it gives it that extra layer of energy. And so for me with Neurographica, there are rules to it, but my rule number one is it's your drawing color however you want, if you want. But if you want to color with Neurographica rules, there are a couple of rules where we like color over the lines, not within the lines. I know it's very freeing because we grew up like coloring in coloring books and like staying in the sections. And
Yeah.
Neurographica is about expanding and moving the energy across the page and putting it where you feel it belongs. As far as certain colors, I think it's more of an intuition. And I always say if you have no idea what color to pick, just close your eyes and put your hand into the bin and
Yeah.
pick one out. And that's the color that it's meant to be. That being said, if you're drawing something and you're like, I really just want more peace, well, then what color would that be for you? What color would peace be? Is it a nice blue or a purple?
Yeah.
So you can do colors that represent things. And at the same time, you can just totally do it like aesthetically, like picking the colors the way you think that they're going to look good. There's also, if you're into the chakras, then you can align your drawing with chakra colors or the five Chinese elements. There are some drawings where I've used, the colors that are associated with the Chinese elements. I don't want to say free for all, but very freeing in that you can add color however you want. And it's really just about that energy that you're adding to that page and how it changes the drawing so much when we get to that step. Because until then, it's just, there's a lot of energy there, but that
Yeah.
color step really, really enhances that energy.
So you draw the lines and the circles with a Sharpie, right? Does the color, is that, can't imagine that would be Sharpie too, is that?
It can be. The recommended material is actually highlighters, which I really rebelled against in the beginning because that is an office supply. But I've
Right.
since, right, realized the drawing is transparent. Like we want to be able to see all the different layers. And so when you color over something with a highlighter, you can still see the black lines and the circles and everything underneath. So I got the wisdom of it after once I learned a little bit more, coloring pencils, highlighters, or markers. But if you're using like a black marker and then you picture a nice dark purple or a dark blue, and you just start adding that color, you lose the circles or you lose some of those things that you
Yeah.
already drew. And so we don't want to do that. Again, drawing with a purpose. You're drawing, you can do whatever you want, but if those circles were significant and you want to sort of keep them intact, then you just want to color with something that you're going to still be able to see them.
Okay.
But it is a great way to be like, I need more passion. I just need more passion and energy. Oh, that's pinks and reds. Give me fire.
Yeah.
What do I need here? Yeah, for sure.
So you're saying you color outside the lines, which I feel like is like
Oh, yeah.
a rule that nobody needs to break, but I totally get it. So could you do like a background per se?
Yep, yep.
Oh,
So, the thing with it, there's tons of we call them algorithms, and sometimes it's just like lines and a couple of circles. And sometimes it looks like a flower, like a lotus. That's the neuro lotus algorithm. A very popular one and one that you would find online would be a neuro tree. So it looks like a tree. There might be circles or different shapes in it. And so you can totally color in like the entire page if you wanted to. But again, there's no rule that says you have to do that. We're just adding some energy to the page. When you feel like it's enough color, that's when it's enough color. Sometimes in sessions, people are like, just the other day this happened. She was like, well, I was going to leave some background, but now the whole page is colored in. She's like, I don't know what happened. You're like, well, that's what your subconscious wanted to fill in every square inch. I wonder what that means.
Right.
Like just really getting curious about is it something about finishing something, not wanting to like leave something incomplete. You can draw
Right.
your
Yeah.
own conclusions about what that means. But yeah, the color, even if we have circles, the color can just move across the page like flowing like waves. No matter what your
Mm.
shapes are. It's really it's intuitive. It's like, where does this color belong and what color belongs here? And like you said, it's kind of like going with the flow. Like, you don't have to analyze everything. You don't have to be like, this color means this and this color means this. Just grab some colors and enjoy putting the colors down and trust that your subconscious is doing whatever the processing it needs to do in the background.
And how long do you think a Neurographica session would be? Is it broken up? Or is it all just one session?
Yeah, so the in-person kind of sessions, my sessions, I blend, and sometimes online too, I blend a little bit of visualization, a little bit of nervous system regulation, and oracle cards too sometimes. So like 2.5 hours to complete the whole entire session. Whenever I do them online, they're usually a bit shorter than that, 90 minutes ish. It's not a race. Like, it's not a it is a process, and I remember whenever I started, the sessions I was going to were 2.5 to 3 hours long. I saw on the calendar when I signed up for 'em, like, "Holy
Right.
crap, like, that's a really long." But once I did the first one, I was like, "Oh, I get it now." The first hour is just like, phew, it's gone, and now we're adding color, now it's over. It's just it goes by so quickly. So the way I
Yeah.
do my sessions online, 90-ish minutes. It also depends on the people, like if there's questions and whatnot. It depends if I am incorporating oracle cards in there, because there's one
That's
step
fun.
where they can fit really well, where we connect in with the power of the universe, the power of source, the divine. And so
Yeah.
sometimes that extra little message adds a really nice additional layer on top of the drawing. And it is wild how almost every time people get whatever card or message that they needed.
Isn't that
It
amazing how that
just
happens?
it really is. It's like, but how? Like, there was one session I did just the other day, and the lady beside me was just kind of like, they had picked oracle cards and then were reading their own. They came with like 2-page spreads. I'm like, I'm not going to read this. You guys can just read your own. And then when you're ready,
Yeah.
go back to the drawing. And she was reading through it and just shaking her head. She's like it's a description of my drawing. She couldn't get over.
Wow.
She's like it's completely describing the process, and her drawing looked quite different. I don't wanna say broke some of the rules in Neurographica. She did her own
Yeah.
thing, and her piece was amazing, and you could see the energy from it, like, it almost pulsated from the piece, and it was just, yeah, just so that oracle card, layer can add an additional support with the universe, connection with yourself,
Yeah.
trust, which then can make them take a little bit longer. That being said, you can do it in 5 minutes. There is a de-stress kind of thing that we do as well, which the process can be shortened to 5 minutes. It can be shortened to 15 minutes. It's just a full length workshop. It takes longer than that, but you can
Right.
de-stress in a couple minutes with just a little bit of a drawing and a little bit of rounding and kind of get that energy out. It's quite flexible.
Amazing. Okay. So we're almost up of time. So I just want you to tell people where they can find you and if you have a website or any links that you recommend people to find you.
Sure. So I broke down a drawing over the course of a week and delivered to your inbox each day. You get about a 10 or 15-minute little piece of it. You just need a little bit of time for yourself, a marker and a piece of paper. And I just walk you through sort of each part of the drawing. So by the end of the week, you finish your drawing. You could also just wait till the end of the week if you want to do it all at once.
Yeah.
But that would be how to get sort of a taste for what it is, what it feels like, and if you like it, because it's like anything else. Obviously, it's not for everybody, but you can kind of get a little bit of a feel for it. I have online sessions. Again, on my website, there's a calendar so you can see, usually there's like one a month that you can jump
Right.
into. And those, again, are usually 90 minutes to 2 hours. And in addition to that, I've got something called permission to play. And so it's really, again, kind of goes back to what we talked about at the beginning here, giving yourself that permission that, if you don't do something to
Yeah.
energize yourself soon, we need to be refilling our cups. And so permission to play is a space where I call it a goodie bag of activities. It's kind of like when
Ooh.
like somebody's planning so much work, you just want to be the one to show up. Like someone else do the planning. I just want to show up and enjoy. So this is your opportunity each month to show up and just enjoy. And there's a monthly group tarot reading that I have in there. And my tarot is for self-development. It's not predictive or anything like that. It's to
Okay.
connect in. One of the themes, because there's a theme each month, one is releasing perfectionism. May is reconnecting with nature, and April is dreaming in full color. And so if you were to join, you get all the back issues too. So you kind of can go back in time to
Oh,
what
that's
came
awesome.
previously. Yeah, but there's a tarot reading, there's a watercolor activity, there's a self-coaching tool, there's access to the Neurographica drawing for the month. So if you're in permission to play, you automatically are going to get an invite to whatever I've got going on live for the month. And the other thing is a lot of people that I was chatting with are finding it hard to like move their bodies, like actually do some physical
Oh,
movement.
yeah.
And so the additional layer in there, I call it funspiration. It's just something to make it easier to move your body, get outside, actually get some joy from movement. And all of the activities are short, like 10, 15 minutes. They're to spark an idea, to get you to think about something different or try something differently, so that you can find over time, you start to notice things in your own world that you might want to try, like a
Mm.
pottery class, or, start to, the permission to play really to me is meant to be like the door, the gateway to kind of open that up. That you're like, okay, this really does help whenever I take time for myself. And hello at crystalmillscoaching.com if you have any questions or want to chat about coaching, because I do less coaching. I have fewer clients. Neurographica, I tend to work with women who are, we'll say, 30 and up. To
Okay.
do the actual drawing part of it, anybody can do it, because I did it with a friend's kids who were like all over it one summer. It was never such an enjoyable summer, she said, because they were just at the table doing the drawing. We didn't do the steps though, right? We showed them
Right,
how
right.
to like do the drawing process. And that was enough to kind of hook them and keep them engaged. So, any age, I would say, if you can hold a marker, you can do Neurographica. The actual personal development part
Yeah, that
is,
part.
yeah, for sure. The developmental side of things, it's a bit older.
So with the drawing part, have you tried that with your kids at school, or is that completely separate for you?
Yeah, so people always ask me this. So I have done neuro art, which is, it looks like the drawing, but without, because it dips your toe into coaching. And I try to, even though, it would, I'm sure, be
Boundaries.
helpful, it is the boundary side of things. And I wouldn't want, those lines to get blurred too much. So neuro art and the drawing part, yes, but the neurographica and the personal development side, no. Yep. Just because.
No, I totally get it. I just was wondering, like, if is there like, a kid version, and I guess the newer art would be their version.
Well, and not to say I would just wanna chat with a parent before I did it. it would be, I wouldn't wanna do it with the whole class. I did do a session with the teachers on a PD. It
Ooh,
was, I think I had 35 come to that
that's
voluntarily,
good
you can
enough.
imagine. So it was great, and maybe someday.
Yeah, send me the link. I'd love to try it. Your little video that you sent me when we were chatting, I'm like, this seems really cool.
Yeah, it's very visual, and it is, I struggle sometimes to explain it in, like, the audio, version. But, yeah, it's a special modality. Of course, it's not for everyone, but if it's for you, like the lady that just drew it for the first time about a week ago, and I was chatting with her last night,
Yeah,
and she was drawing it a second time, she's like, "I'm hooked." I'm hooked, and she hasn't
that's
drawn or
amazing.
colored since she was a kid, so it's, yeah, pretty special.
That's amazing. Another way to get your energy out, even like get unwanted energy out too.
Yep.
Release the energy for the day or
We've got an
something.
algorithm for that.
Oh,
It's called the algorithm for removing limitations, and we can get the all the energy out in a very short period of time. Yep.
wow. Thank you, Crystal, so much for today. Feel like I could talk to you for another hour. Lovely souls, thank you so much. If you're interested, all her information will be in the show notes.